This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Big welcome to all our viewers. We're currently here at Beyond Ngala, and we're watching this elephant bull feeding. Now, it's been very interesting watching him this morning because there was a branch that was lying down over this tall, lush green grass. And he basically went, picked it up, moved it to the side, and then from there it made space so he can get to that lush green grass. And also now, just look at how selectively he picks the leaves off that looks like it might be one of the raisin bushes. How he's just carefully plucking it and then putting it into his mouth. But I would like to invite all the viewers, come and join us here on our live drive here in the African bush. Look at how he's just taking his trunk, like grabbing hold of a branch and then curling it around to get grip on it to break it off. You can also see there's a bit of sleep in this elephant's eyes. It might be because look at his ears, look at his head. You'll notice there's a, it looks like there's two different colors here. So it might be that he probably yesterday was flicking some mud or sand onto his back, and maybe there was a bit of sand that came into his eye, and that's why he has those that sleep in his eye. So I'm NIKKI, I'm going to be your ranger for this morning, and on camera we have Owen. Now, it's just a beautiful morning. Look at how this elephant is now stretching up to get to one of the bigger branches. It's just incredible how strong they are. Listen. It's incredible how they use their tusks as tools, where he basically wrapped his trunk around that branch, brought it down, and then used that tusk of his to break it so that it can hang down lower and make it more easier for him to feed on. So 50, he is quite a big bull, but he's not the biggest bull that I have seen this morning. There's actually a few bulls that are together here, but he is a decent size. You can also notice his tusk, like the width of his, so see between his tusk, the width and the size of his trunk. So often the bigger bulls have quite a broad trunk, like at the base, and also their head is slightly bigger, but he is a decent sized bull. And even for him, in order to sustain himself, he'll probably need to eat so much food in a day. Probably because it's so nice and overcast today, he might spend the majority of today just feeding along and eventually going to water a bit later on. He might have even come from water, and now he'll just have to feed. Because you can see he only picks handfuls, and so in order to sustain himself, he'll need to eat at least like almost close to 100, if not more, kilograms of leaves and grass and strips of bark in order to sustain that big body of his. Tom, if I have to look at this elephant and just look at his shoulder height, the width of his trunk, like his overall just appearance, I would probably say he's close to maybe 35 years old, if that old. And it's only when a bull really gets to like 40, 45, when they, instead of growing up, they start like growing sideways, and so they become really, really big, and they pick up quite a bit of weight. So there is another elephant bull at the back there. So what I'm going to do is let's creep slowly forward. We don't want to go too close because of where this elephant is in relation to the other one, but we might get a glimpse of another elephant that's on that side. So let's just slowly creep forward. I can see the tusks through the trees. Now I'm just hoping we can get a glimpse. This one's actually moving towards the other one. Okay. Now he looks like he might be bigger than this elephant that we're just looking at the moment. You can also notice on him there's like this shade of red from his tusk all the way up to his head. And that's probably like as they were, like as he was moving, he was probably like taking some of the sand and like throwing it onto his back. And that just shows you that bit of a appearance there. Now, there was a question asked now, and I didn't hear it properly. I'll ask one of the directors to read it again. But with some of our viewers the other day, we were talking about how many teeth do an elephant or does an elephant have. And I said I will get back to everyone on it. So I did some research on it. Apparently, they have 26 teeth that helps to grind the vegetation. And those set of teeth, so that's actually being pushed out from the back part of their mouth. So every like 10 years, they have those 6 set of teeth that will then push out until eventually they won't grow back. And because of that, they then die because of malnutrition, because they're not able of properly digesting and their food.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Juma, where it's nice and damp and very, very fresh because we did get rain last night. It's 19 degrees Celsius and 66 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're sitting in the Milwaukee once again with Mrs. Wig and Olivia, trying to get a good view. My name is Lauren and I do have Het on camera today. And unfortunately, we're not getting the views that I'm really hoping for. I also visited the hyena den and no one is home, so my frustrations are rather high, shall we say. I don't know whether the Duma clan have moved. I can't see any signs. I really can't. And it's very frustrating. So I think driving around checking dens, I check dens every time I go past them as necessary. There definitely will be dens that we don't know about, for sure. But I think that's what my morning is going to involve. It's a lovely morning, delicious morning, petrichor galore. I love that smell. That's the term given to when rain sort of first hits the ground and that lovely earthy smell. So that's what is filling our nostrils right now. So we'll spend a little bit of time with Mrs. Wig here, just trying to get a view. There's no way that we can track the development of Olivia without seeing her. I mean, we can see 5% of her. But unfortunately, we need a complete view of the chick. So again, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time here. And then I think I really need to start checking the dens because I don't know where our hyenas have gone. And it's going to drive me crazy. And I don't believe it was Swazi we saw the other day. Can you believe it? I could have sworn I saw the EJ. He's got a really obvious EJ on his hip. Could have sworn I saw that. But clearly the heat was getting to my head that day. So I'm going to lose touch with these hyenas if I don't see them soon, and I know that many of you are missing them. So it may be a slightly quieter drive on my part, but what I will do is I'll just check all the den sites that we know of and try and look for signs of them. I did wonder whether they've maybe shifted slightly to become far more nocturnal, the cubs I'm talking about, because of the extraordinary heat we've been facing. Many animals do that. But alternatively, they just could have moved. So I think it's worth it. Let's check all the den sites. A termite mound check for the morning. But first, Mrs. Wig, you have to reveal Olivia to us. And this is also why I think she is the age that we first guessed her at and not older, because Mother is still very, very much with her 24 hours a day. Now, we can't account for nighttime, but I still definitely don't think she's older than the 2-week mark. Approaching it, yes. But still, let's wait to see if we get a good look. It's going to be key here in checking some feathers and checking whether she can stand. How is her posture? Is she moving her wings? Is she just squatting, or is she actually able to stand on her own 2 feet? But Mrs. Wig, if you don't give us a view, then we're never going to know. It probably has been a chilly night, which is why Chick is tucked in, nice and cozy. It's always a joy to see Mrs. Wig, don't get me wrong, but of course, when she's here, we don't happen to get a view of that bundle of fluff under her wing. Little Vixen, I was gone for 5 weeks. Incredibly long time, so I wasn't here during that phase that they found eggs. But I think Steve and Tristan came regularly to check, and I believe there was another egg. They can lay up to about 4. But I didn't get a view of the eggs, I'm afraid. I was not here. I just arrived back for hatching time. So she could have laid 4, she could have lost, I really don't know. But I believe Steve did find an egg that had rolled down the embankment, which was rather sad. There's a high level of investment. There's a lot of maternal care from Mom here to make sure all chicks are fed, to brood them, to incubate the eggs. Obviously, the more eggs, the more sort of energy that's required to look after each egg and then each chick. So I would imagine 1 chick is actually perfect for Mrs. Wig here. So we are going to sit here just a little bit longer in case we get a view, and then we will bumble on and start our den check.
Good morning and welcome to this end of the sunrise safari. Up in the tree over there we have got what remains of the, well, very macabre but very fascinating scene we had yesterday of Tlalamba killing this impala lamb. It's been eaten, bits of it have been eaten, it certainly hasn't been devoured, and I did see an adult impala quite close by here. So I'm not sure if Tlalamba is still around. And it's not entirely unusual at this time of the year to find this kind of... It's alarming. She must be quite close by. That's cool. Anyway, my name is James Hendry. Niels, the hood from the ganglands of Pretoria East, is on camera today. Let's go and see if we can find this leopard. I suspect she's just ahead over here, or returning maybe to climb up the tree. So maybe she went for a bit of water. Let's just have a look-see. Impala's looking up here, so she's probably coming down through this area here. He's staring into this bush. There she is. Hello, my dear. Good morning. Lovely to see you. I hope you're very well. It's almost as if she sat up to alert us to her presence. Oh, itchy little neck. So, if you were not with us yesterday morning, first of all, as I always like to say, shame upon you, but I'll forgive you this time. We watched Tlalamba, this leopardess, aged 3, toying with that baby impala, not killing it immediately, and in fact taking a fairly long time over killing it, which was very difficult to watch. Now that tail is up in truce. She's indicating that she is not hunting. And I had the most wonderful experience with her 2 nights ago in camp. She came wandering past through the camp as I came out from where I was having supper. I just saw the tail, so I quickly nipped out to see. And she was walking very comfortably through the camp. And I went, just whistled. She stopped and looked over her shoulder once. And then just kind of, I like to think she winked at me and then carried on going. She's going to climb the tree now, I think. Let's just wait and see if she climbs the tree here. Aunt Christine? No, I don't think she's doubled in size in the last year. I would definitely say that she's got bigger. I'm not sure she's doubled in size, though. She's probably got about a third bigger, I'd say. But I mean, I might be wrong. There we go. Up she is. It's so cool to see them climb. It's one of the really nice things that people enjoy watching. Climbing cats, for whatever reason. What a lovely way to start our day. I think we should probably go a little closer. In fact, we probably don't need to go any closer. Yes, they do eat fish. We've seen them eating fish. We've seen them taking catfish in puddles sometimes. We've seen them eating catfish that have died at Chitwa Dam during the drought. So, yeah, no, definitely they eat fish. I don't know if you've heard of or seen that film called Savage Kingdom. It's a National Geographic film shot in Botswana, and they've got a wonderful scene. I think it's in the first season, maybe even be the first episode, of a leopardess catching enormous catfish in a puddle.
Good morning and welcome to Tswalo Kalahari. Another beautiful morning here in South Africa. Temperatures starting on the high teens. My name is OBAKENG, and behind the camera there we've got Dave doing a very excellent job there. Today we're going to be heading a little bit more to the west of the reserve. It's part of the reserve that we haven't really covered much, and we're really hoping for something a little bit different this morning, something we haven't really covered. Let's see what Mother Nature provides for us this morning, but I'm very, very hopeful. Let's see. We'll be probably hoping for something like a den side of some sort. Maybe if I'm taking a guess, I would say Cape foxes, maybe backyard foxes. You never know. Let's see what Mother Nature provides. Stick with us.
Hello everybody, sorry about that. Not sure what's happened to the Mara or the Mila. But here we are, still with our leopardess. We've just repositioned so we can see her face and her devouring of this impala lamb. She's already dropped a leg, and that leg is now detached. She's just sort of scraping the meat off the skin there. Bit of a crunching.
Crossed over to the feed diary. Looked like from last night.
I must say, the scene is far less difficult to watch than yesterday's because, you know, the impala lamb is now a little bit like a piece of steak, I guess. Whereas yesterday we watched it suffer for about 20 minutes before she finally put an end to it. And then when she put it in the tree, it looked like it had climbed up itself and was just resting there. And the most most macabre part of the whole thing was that its ears were flapping with the wind, so it looked like it was alive, lying next to its tormentor in a sort of state of resigned, I don't know, desperation. I don't know if anybody can try and sort of answer this for me, but I think that her mother has got quite yellow teeth. In fact, she's got very yellow teeth, definitely. And I don't know if that's just age or if it's genetics. You know, like some people have got yellower teeth than others. And I wonder if Tlalamba's teeth, when I look at her teeth versus Shidulu's, I wonder if there isn't some kind of genetic predisposition to yellowing of the teeth. Because I think her teeth they're certainly very beautiful teeth, but they're just not quite as pearly white as Shidulu's, I don't think. But maybe I'm just talking nonsense. Sorry, Jared, you'll have to give me that question again. Graham, the leopard was licking the impala, I suspect, because it was preparing to eat. They often do that just before they eat, and then sometimes they'll even do it early on to take the fur off. But I don't think she did anything like that now. I think it was probably a bloodied piece of exposed flesh that she licked this morning. Yeah, Jen, she'll get a good meal from the baby impala. She's about to drop it now. You know, the baby impala probably weighed in the region of, or couldn't have been more than 7 kilograms, I wouldn't have thought. Maybe 5 or 7 kilograms. And of that 5 or 7 kilograms, probably about 1 kilogram of it is skin. And she won't eat that, but she'll eat just about everything else. Because the bones are so soft, I think she'll eat most of the rest of it. I also personally think that she's eaten more than one of these things in the last few days, because she was so full yesterday morning, and she doesn't hardly touch the carcass, but, you know, a really hungry leopard will finish off prey that size in a day. You can take that back up with you or eat it on the ground. Yes. You see, they'd far rather eat on the ground if they can. It's just more comfortable. Less precarious. What can you see, my dear? Well, no, not yet, Tom. No hyenas have shown up yet, but she looks like she thinks something's coming this way. We had a whole lot of alarm calling around here yesterday when she was in the tree. In fact, when she was not in the tree, when she was off sort of to the east of where she is now, so directly behind your picture. And we did not ever discover what it was that was causing the consternation with the impala. It couldn't have been her. So I'm surprised another predator hasn't pitched up here. I guess also the smell of the impala will be negligible because it's been in pretty cool weather, and so, it's not sort of hasn't ripened in the sun.
Jumbo and welcome to the Mara, where we have a small herd of buffaloes. My name is Tim, and behind camera we have Big James. Now this small herd here is enjoying the sun because yesterday it rained a little bit. We had some showers at night. So about 16 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. The number of herd actually fluctuates depending on social or environmental factors. You find that during the dry season, big mass or big herds of buffaloes will gather at water points and even across the savannah. And sometimes when they have young calves, the numbers sometimes can fluctuate. So this small herd here looks like a small breeding herd. I can see one big bull actually on the right. Because buffaloes actually are bulk grazers. They eat a lot of grass, and sometimes when there's no grass, you find that they will be browsing on leaves and twigs. So it doesn't really matter whether there's grass or not. But the good thing is there's lots of moisture or water in the grass, so they get to enjoy that. You see them most of the time early in the morning when they're feeding, and then in the mid-morning or maybe late afternoon, they take time to rest. They also drink water twice in a day. You find that in the morning they'll go out to drink. We're not far from a little stream that feeds the Mara River. And beyond the bushland there, the tree line, that's where the little stream is. And I think that they seem like they're heading that direction. But since there's lots of water in the grass, I'm sure they have adequate water supply at the moment. Oxpeckers doing their cleaning job. Very, very nice morning. You can see the youngsters, the young bulls are still staring at us while the calves are following their mom. Cattle egrets starting to show up. Rail Fan, thank you for your question. Yes, the flies are bothering them. That's why you can see them flapping their ears continually and their tails swinging and swishing off those flies. Especially when they fly or swarm on their faces, they actually bother them. But it's nature. So we have insects, or also those flies that are being eaten by the cattle egrets. So that's why you find that when buffaloes are walking in across the savannah, you find that the insect is disturbed, and sometimes even the flies get to be eaten by the cattle egrets. But some of what you can see flying amongst the buffalo are what we call the alates. Alates are the reproductive insects from either termites or ants, but those are alates from the ants. So during the rains, you'll find that most alates will be up in the air because they want to form a new colony. So the male will fly up and release a chemical component called pheromone, and where they'll attract a female and where they'll come and mate and begin starting a new colony. So we have flies and we have the alates, which are flying just not far from where we are. Actually, you can see them swarming across the screen. Those are the alates. Elizabeth, thank you for your question. Not that much. I'm not bothered by the flies because we're in an open vehicle. So when I'm driving off, you find that the wind blows them off in all directions. You can see it's all open. And because it's the rule of nature, I understand what's going on here. So I want to see ants going on. So it's also enjoyable when you see the alates flying above. What a nice morning to wake up into a very small herd. So I might head off to find something else as I take you over to another live location.
So unfortunately, we're not getting a good look. Not the look that I want. Anyway, so I think we will bumble on after this. But you can see that Missy's wig has two feathers sticking right up from the top of her head, and we call these ear tufts, which is so misleading because in fact they have absolutely nothing to do with hearing. Owls do have fantastic hearing, and their ears, if you like, and I use that word loosely because they don't have external ears, are situated on either side of Missy's wig's head, very, very close to that dark line, that sort of circular line that's making up the facial discs. And the ear opening is known as the aperture, and there's a special valve known as the operculum, which is sort of our owl terminology, but it's really, really not attached to the skeleton in any way. The ear tufts, they are literally just feathers. They don't have any function in hearing, but what the function of these ear tufts is, no one's really sure. There's some theories. Is it camouflage? Does it help break up the owl's outline? Even if a human sits in a hide, like Dylan did at Swallow many times. Oh, we've got some movement. You just need a few branches or a few sticks to break up your outline, and predators will not be able to pick up your body. That's what Inyala stripes do. That's the function of many sort of leopards' rosettes, just to break up that outline. Is that the function of these tufts? Or is it to make them look extremely aggressive and larger and scarier? It just gives them, a centimetre or two more of height, and this could maybe make them appear more intimidating. Or is it courtship? And is it courtship, and therefore it can maybe signal to a mate? Sexual selection, possibly. And maybe the males are sort of bigger, and the females will think, oh, I like his ear tufts. Hello there. We don't know. And the last theory sort of comes down to communication. They can move them. They have control over them. They can flatten them on top of the head. They can make them go more erect. And I'm pretty sure they can move them independent. So does it convey dominance? Does it convey submission? Or does it convey any form of emotion? And that's the four theories. But it's not conclusive. No one really knows why owls, and it's not all owl species. I think it's like 50 species that have the ear tufts. Makes them look adorable, though. Ray, I think that name was. I hope I got that right. You're asking about these owl predators. Of course, they are predators themselves. Oops. But you are asking who the predators are. And for the spotted eagle owl, the sort of main predators would be other birds of prey. Now, you can actually classify an owl as a raptor because they use their talons, but other larger raptors would absolutely go for these spotted eagle owls. Now, in saying that, if a leopard, if Miss Kalamba walked along the Mulwati and spotted, she was absolutely attempt to go for the owl. And the chick, so would lions, so would hyenas. But of course, because they can fly, then they most likely would not be successful in that attempt. So your sort of terrestrial predators would, and snakes. Snakes would be a big risk for these owls as well. They would sneak up and try to catch these owls. So they've got quite a range of predators. And that's why she's camouflaged, she's tucked away in the vegetation, she's roosting. She's got to make sure that she doesn't get seen by any of these predators. During the day, of course. Oh, Olivia. So we are going to leave now. There's other vehicles that want a view of this gorgeous owl, and we'll start checking the dens for hyenas.
Our lady leopard has climbed back into the tree. She came down, ate for a while, as you saw, then she fiddled about on the ground and then went back up and decided to make a good hard effort at the inside. Now that is the rear end of our impala, or her impala, it's definitely not ours, and I think that she's eaten out the nutritious internal organs, and I suppose that there's not a lot of flesh there because it is a very young animal, 2 days old or so. Well, it was a very young animal. It is soon going to return to the nutrients from which it was constituted, I suppose. I find that it's a good idea not to think too long on whether or not, or, the complexities of how that little impala came into being, because the biological miracle that is the constitution of two single cells, haploid cells in the spermatozoa and the egg, eventually becoming the incredibly complex organism that is that baby impala, and then it's born and snuffed out within 2 days. It's not a waste at all, but it just seems, I don't know, I find it difficult to compute, but maybe that's because my 1 megabyte brain just can't cope with it. Anyway, I find it amazing. Yes, indeed, I've forgotten the name, I'm afraid, but they do eat the bones. If the bones are small enough, they will eat them.
Negative. Yeah, I'll try to follow up with telemetry track. Where are you at the moment? Which location?
Hello, Linda. It was you who were asking about the bones. Yum, yum. No, Bonnie, I don't think she looks pregnant. It was difficult to tell with a leopard because they don't show until quite close to the end, and she's been eating. You can tell the difference between a full stomach, though, and a pregnant stomach. And I remember noticing when Tundi was pregnant with the cubs before her current son, and she lost those 2 cubs, but I remember seeing her one day with all of you, and we all agreed that there was something very odd about the shape of her stomach, and she gave birth, less than a week later, I think. Anyway, I don't think she's pregnant. Well, certainly not far along in her pregnancy. She could be pregnant, though. And remember that her most likely mate would be Mulwati, the male leopard. And he's the most likely candidate for the father of Tandi's son as well. And we didn't see Tandi mate at all. And if he's around, you just won't see him in the act of mating, because he just refuses to spend any time around vehicles. I think the other interesting thing is that, well, the interesting thing about Mulwati, her potential consort, is that I assumed he'd come from the Kruger, where he hadn't experienced vehicles, and I was corrected by Michael Fleetwood and a few others who said that that's disgusting. And eat it up. Oh, wow. That's spectacular. Anyway, Mulwati comes from Thornybush, where there's a greater vehicle concentration on some days than you might find in Times Square. So why he should be nervy of vehicles, I'm not sure. Apparently his mother was quite nervy, but that normally doesn't translate to nervy cubs if you've got vehicles around them. So it's odd that he's grown up so secretive. Anyway, hopefully he'll calm down, but I doubt it, I'm afraid. It's a lovely morning. Gentle bird song, not an exuberant chorus. Couple of hardy-dars, Diederik's cuckoos. Yes, kune, I have noticed that actually. It's, unless they're mating, of course, in which case there is no social distancing, but leopards are a perfect example of how to behave during a pandemic. They do not spend any time partying in close confinement with each other at super spreader events. They tend to stick to themselves. And now, what is your plan, Missy? Are you going to have a jump? Consulting detective, I don't know. I don't think we do have bets on when the first woodland kingfisher is going to arrive. My bet is somewhere around now. Shall I say the 10th? No, it's the 11th today, isn't it? Is it Remembrance Day today? I think it is. I'm going to say the 13th. Couple of days. Although, Niels, you said you saw one. Niels has seen a woodland kingfisher. I haven't seen one. So there we go. There's definitely at least one around here. We were a bit slow on the uptake for this year's betting. Now she's going to do another little jump for us. Will you be doing another jump, Chalamba? I can't believe you're going to lie there. No, Weather Gone Wild. I don't think the game drive radio scares the animals. I hope it doesn't. This is typical Tlalamba behavior now. That is a hell of a leap. I'm most impressed. Yeah, there we go. She's got the crazies. Not from a great height, but I have seen leopards fall out of trees, and I've seen videos of leopards falling out of trees from great heights, normally when they're fighting with each other. But it's unlikely that she'd fall from there. It's not impossible. Here we go. That's fine. No, there. Oh, she nearly fell out. This is unbelievable. It's wonderful. She's mad. I've always felt that she's never been the most elegant in a tree, and that although she's extremely active, she's always looked like she might be on the edge of falling out. Hosanna, who many of you will know, who is her, what is Hosanna to her? Her cousin. Hosanna's her cousin. And he, her uncle. Hosanna was, I would say, pretty inelegant in a tree. And if he was doing this, I would put money on him almost coming a crupper. I mean, there is no purpose to this other than for fun. No, girl with box, the name Tlalamba is supposed to be Shangaan, but if you speak to any Shangaan person, they've never heard the word before. So I'm not sure how we ended up with it, frankly. It's supposed to mean mischievously playful, which is perfect. I mean, if that's what it does mean, then it's supposed to be, then it's a perfect name for her. She's now behind this tree. Let's just wait 1 second before we move, simply because the bush here is very thick, and if I move forward, there you can see a nose. I mean, I must say it's one of my pet bugbears is this misuse of local languages. Anyway, I quite like Tlalamba, and I like the sentiment behind her name. It's definitely better than the name Termite Mound, which is what Shidulu's name is.
So welcome back to the Mara. What a nice leopard activity there. So I come across here a spotted hyena sunning. I like the way the sun is shining on his mane. Sometimes hyenas you'll find that in the morning at a time like this, especially after the rains, they'll be out in the open sunning. But during the day, when the temperatures rise, this hyena will just move to a water settlement here and just relax to cool off. I don't know where the clan members are. So this hyena belongs to the Ololo clan. We're not far from the Ololo. So this is from the Ololo clan. And you find sometimes hyenas will be settling just close to their dens where they sometimes be guarding the pups. We have babysitters sometimes who are left behind to watch over the pups as the other ones go out to forage. They're strictly nocturnals, but you find that if there's food, they'll always be scavenging during the day. Hyenas are successful hunters, but then also they're scavengers. You find them out. Maybe one like this will be out hunting on his own. Sometimes they'll be hunting in groups of 2 to 5, and sometimes they can be in very big groups, which makes them more successful. The reason being, they have a strong endurance when out running or chasing prey. They reckon they can run a speed of about 60 kilometers for up to 4 to 5 kilometers. So they don't kill like other carnivores. They always wear out their prey, and then they'll eat their prey alive. Because when you look at their structure, they don't have retractile claws, which enables most carnivores to pin down or to hold prey. So in that manner, they were given a very strong jaw power, where they'll just grab and get hold of their prey and eat them alive. Seems like he spotted something. Not quite sure what he's seen over there. There's a topi. Or maybe he got some sounds coming from that direction. There's a lone buffalo. Chen, thank you for your question. We've not had any sighting of cheetahs of late. So the last time I saw a cheetah was about 3 weeks ago. The reason being, where we cover is, you can see at this point there's short grass, but we have areas where there's long grass. And sometimes cheetahs will move with the herds. You find that when the Thompson gazelle and the impala are moving toward direction, they tend to move with them. But also, cheetahs cover a big range. So they can cover about 1,500 square kilometers. So that's the reason why sometimes we don't get to see the cheetahs. Still watching over the topi. Not quite sure whether he wants to go there or not. Very intelligent animals. Footsock, thank you so much for your question. Because animals have instincts, they have senses. Definitely, they also feel pain, like us humans, but they don't display the pain that they feel just like us. So the social system of these hyenas is more competitive rather than cooperative. You find that to get access to the kills that they have to go through a hierarchy. You find that the ones that eat first are the dominant alpha female, and then the subordinates who get to eat next. And it's funny that females only provide for their own rather than assist each other. But you find that in lions, when lions have cubs, so each member will actually nurse another one's cub. But in hyenas, it's totally opposite. You find that each hyena will actually nurse their pup. They'll always walk back to the den and regurgitate food to their pups for them to eat. So most of the time you find that in a hyena den you'll find scraps of bones scattered all over. It's because they always bring food back to their dens. Seems like a nice spot for this hyena to relax. So I'm just going to leave him here and head off to find something else as I take you over to another live location.
We've came across a gorgeous feeding herd of elephants. Now, just an update on the den search. I know that some of you really follow the Juma clan. I have checked Gwen's Den, Treehouse and Shibamu. It's 3 dens, no luck. Something's living in Gwen's Den, but I don't think it's a hyena. But my search continues. Very relaxed herd. You see, they're covered, they're really dusty. At some point, they've sprayed themselves with dust bathing. Naturally protects them from the sun. So I think we are in store for a glorious day. And once that sun really springs into action, the dust acts as protection for them. Now, we were talking about the matriarch yesterday because it's really important you don't assume. I didn't catch that name, but you're asking about the ivory. Does it get recycled normally here in the sands because it's such a sensitive topic? We have a fantastic anti-poaching unit at play here. Normally, any ivory that is found or spotted from a dead elephant, or even if you come across a broken tusk. Hello, Mama. You're an old girl, aren't you? It will get reported and they will take it. It gets taken by the proper authorities just because of the illegal trade and sort of the black market for ivory in Africa. Hello. She's very close. close to the car. She's feeding though. Elephants are near the car, it's really important that you just focus on what's going on. So yes, it's highly unlikely due to the nature of the material of the ivory that it would biodegrade. We find teeth here, we find bones here, and over a really, really long period of time, they start to break down. But I think insects would not be able to break down the ivory that you're requesting, and I really don't think it would get left for that long. I really don't. Elephant ivory in particular is really, really unique in that if you were to cut it, it's actually got a sort of diamond-shaped crisscross cross-section. It's very unique, and that's how you can identify if it's real or not. You can just have a look at that diamond-shaped crisscross cross-section. And it's basically a tooth. It's a modified incisor. So the visible part that we can see is made from dentine, which you should be familiar with because it's what our teeth are also made from. And there's an outer layer of enamel, same as us. Our teeth are coated in enamel. But if I was to find a tusk right now on the ground, I would have to report it. I wouldn't be able to collect it and take it, even if it was just for showing the viewers or sort of as an artifact. I would have to report it immediately to our anti-poaching unit. So you're asking what is the purpose of their tusks? Mostly self-defense. So not only do these tusks actually protect the trunk. Now the trunk is the most important organ for an elephant. It functions for so many different reasons. It functions as a nose. So there's a series of 7 olfactory terminals inside the trunk, believe it or not, to give them an incredible sense of smell. It functions as a snorkel when they're in water. We all know elephants love water. It functions as a straw, allows them to drink. They also use it extensively in communication. It's really, really important for an elephant. So the tusks actually protect the trunk, believe it or not. But it's also used in self-defense. So males do clash, males will fight, and as disturbing as it is, males can kill one another, especially when they're in must and they're sort of fighting for females. It's also defense against predators. And of course foraging. So they use them as tools, if you like. You see when they take the bark off the trees to reach that inner cambium layer where all the nutrients are, they will sort of slice open the outer bark with their tusks in order to pull it. Whether they're strip barking or ring barking, they'll initially use their tusks, and they can also use their tusks when they're maybe looking for something extremely delicious on the ground. So they use it in self-defense and foraging mostly. But they say that the older bulls sort of start to use their tusks less because their competitive spirit and nature dies down. Jacqueline, elephants do lie down. they will lie down. You'll see them lying on their side, especially the youngsters. They tend to do it more often. But elephants will lie down. Just leaves them slightly vulnerable. Due to their huge body size, it's not so easy for them to get up. So if a threat does present itself, it's not a quick get up out of bed. But they do lie down. And normally the youngsters will lie down when they need to sleep, and the adults will surround them. It's very bizarre seeing an elephant lie down, actually. But they can sort of take a cat nap standing up. So they can all rest standing up as well, which means they don't always need to get down on the ground. The older you get for an elephant, the harder it is to get up and down off the ground. Kune, yes, absolutely. One side is more dominant, and you can normally identify it in a slightly older elephant, maybe not a youngster, by the tusk that's the shortest, because that means it's using that tusk more, and we call that the master tusker. And they're obviously using it to, as I mentioned, strip bark, ring bark trees, using it to pull things up off the ground. And they use one side more than the other because it's the dominant side, and therefore it will get shorter. It will wear down quicker. So when you're looking at an elephant, the shorter tusk is a master tusker. And whichever side it's on, that side is more dominant. Unfortunately, we've lost our views now. They've gone deep into the thicket here. I don't think we're going to get a better visual of this herd. So our den search continues.
Our leopard is very calm now. Whether she shall remain so, I'm not sure. But we'll give her a couple of minutes. If she goes to sleep here, we'll move on and see what else there is out here in the wilderness. She keeps looking up expectantly towards Buffelshoek Waterhole, which is very close by, almost as if she's expecting something to come out of the bush. But I think it's just that typical leopard awareness. Yeah, it's because there's squirrels alarm calling there. But squirrels are notoriously false. Yeah, Nini, they do. I don't think mammals would stop alarming if they saw the leopards raise their tails like she did when that impala was shouting at her. But I've definitely heard birds quieten down when they lift their tails like that. So there'll be a huge kind of conflagration of birds coming to investigate what's going on. And she'll stick a tail up and it'll die down to one or two sort of stragglers, angry stragglers. So it definitely does make a difference. They all do it. And I don't think they would if it wasn't kind of worthwhile, if you know what I mean. Very settled at the moment. I think that if something came past in the form of a herd of impala and there were some babies there, one of them would be subjected to the same fate that this poor chap has been. She looks so content, doesn't she? Michael, I don't know. She's bigger than Tundi, but Tundi's old now. Tundi was never very big, though. So I'd say she's bigger than Tundi. I would say she's about the same size as Guchava, maybe slightly larger. I'm the wrong guy to ask, though, because my ability to discern size from sight is very poor. My eye for proportion is really appalling. So I would say that she's bigger than Guchava. I'd say Guchava was the same size as Karula, and I'd say that Tundi was slightly smaller than all of them, but I could be wrong. I don't think she's as big as Sibui or Shidulu, for example. Those two are, I think, quite big females. I'd love to put them on a scale and check whether our impressions of that are correct. You'd probably find that they're way out. But those would be my guesses. Oh, so sleepy. For sure, Pat, she may well have mated already. She hasn't been calling for the last little while. I know that she was calling 2 weeks here, so maybe she is pregnant, maybe she has mated. And she's certainly well past the age where she could begin to mate. So absolutely. She should. I mean, in theory, you know, first litter around about 3 is not unusual, so you would have expected that she'd have had at least 2 estrus cycles by now, even if they didn't necessarily result in a conception. Oh. And now? I think something bitter on the butt. I don't think there's anything there. But you see how A, silently she shot up, and B, how it looked like she was dead to the world virtually. But she wasn't. This is the thing when people say, you know, how long do cats sleep for? Well, they sleep for a long time, but it's never like we sleep. I'm half tempted to move, but I don't know what she's going to do. Let's just give her 1 minute before we decide. I suspect she's going to lie down there. This has got lie down and go to sleep written all over it. Although, this is Tlalamba. Tom is mating with multiple males an inherent or learned behavior. It's instinctual because they don't learn from their parents. But that's not to say that they don't learn themselves. So let's go forward a little bit. You know, so when she has her first estrus, is that all right? When she has her first estrus, and she comes across a male and she mates with him, you know, that's what she'll do. If there's another male around, she may mate with him as well. I suspect that if there was some kind of bad experience associated with that, such as a conflict over her by the two males, which would be extremely unusual but possible, then maybe she'd think twice about mating with two males again. But I don't think that we could say with any certainty that that would be the case. So I would say it's largely the mating behavior is instinctual. I don't think there's any real choice over whether or not to mate with one or two. Remember, when we say learned behavior, we don't necessarily mean learned from parents. So it could easily be learned from her experience. And in fact, most of what she learns will come from experience. Her hunting learning is self-taught. And all leopards will have a different experience of hunting. And that's why they will all use slightly different techniques from time to time. So although the actual instinct to hunt is, inherent, it's genetic, it is honed through self-learning, but not through the learning from being taught. That is all I have to say on that subject.
So we're watching a troop of baboons that are moving along the Timbavati River. And it's so interesting, like as they're moving, the one will disturb the leaf matter to see if there's maybe any insects, hoping that possibly there could be some scorpions. Look at that. Just any form of grub that they can get. Even sometimes along this river there, you might find some of the fig trees that could drop their fruits that they could be after also by just climbing the tree and getting to the fruit. So there are a few more baboons coming along to the right, but look at this one as well. See how it's just scratching, trying to see if there's any breakfast for the morning. I just love watching a troop of baboons and seeing the interaction amongst the different members, as well as how they go about too, especially early in the morning like this, look for breakfast. To see those ones are looking up, so there are a few other ones that are in the trees up at the top, and while they're up in the top and keeping good lookout, the others are moving around here on the side of the banks to try and see if there's anything for them. Just trying to point out, but it's hard because of that one and how it moved in behind those branches. But look at these ones that are coming down in the river. The two off to the right looks like quite big males. So right in front of him is a Hadida ibis, that bird with the long beak. It's a proper, so it's just going and pushing its bill into the sand to try and look for little insects. Maybe there could be some small frogs or something there for it to go to. So I'll sometimes find, even if there's elephant dung, which is possibly what that one was trying to move out of the way to try and see if there's maybe some beetles, some worms under it. Annalise, they do. if there is an opportunity for them to get, and especially if they can get bananas, they love it. Now, I've heard a story before. I don't know how true this is, but I remember one of my friends sharing it with me. And they were up in Botswana, and there were these three big guys sitting in this vehicle, and they were like the one in the middle was the smallest amongst the three, and they were sitting with a packet of bananas and eating the bananas. And the next moment, as this massive baboon came around, walking towards the vehicle, and of course all three of them were inside, the windows were halfway down, and this baboon picked up that there was some bananas inside, but of course the bigger guy was like, oh, it's a baboon, try to tease it, whatever. And anyway, this baboon climbed into the vehicle to get to the bananas, and eventually everyone just ran out of the vehicle, and it was just this baboon sitting right in the middle of this vehicle, feeding off the bananas inside of it. It was such a story, the way that he told it. But they do love it if they can get their hands on it. I've seen vervet monkeys as well. If they do find some banana or any fruit, they absolutely love it.
Well, a very good morning to quite a chilly day today. Nice little breeze, and of course the elephant feeding amongst all the vegetation, which is not really a surprising scene to see here at Pridelands. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is BK. Like I said, we're here at Pridelands Conservancy, which is part of Baluli Game Reserve and the Greater Kruger National Park. And we are watching a very cheeky elephant who came over to the car and tried to sass us just a moment ago. He even stood on a fallen log or a fallen tree, try and make himself look much bigger, but then he got scared and he ran away, and he took his frustrations out on said tree over there. So now he's sulking, as young elephant bulls do. I reckon he's just going to come around and try his nonsense with us again. He did a very, very good job this morning of doing perfect, textbook displacement behavior. Basically where he was pretending to feed, but he was feeding, and he ate and ate, and then he'd stop like he's doing now. So he's behind all the trees, and eventually he'd get closer and closer, making you think that everything is fine and hunky-dory and that there's no problems. And he positioned himself in such a perfect spot. It was actually so funny. And then how he then put his two front feet up on this tree that had fallen over and stood right above us, showing how big and scary he is. He's not big and scary, though. He's a young elephant bull that's really just trying to assert his dominance over anything and anyone. And we happen to be that thing today. So I have no doubt that he will, in the next 5 minutes, be up at the car again. I think it's going to be a little game for him. It is an exciting experience, especially to be able to be so up close and personal with these giants. But it's also very important that we must remember that we must respect them. Obviously, with these young bulls, they really do try to test the waters and get a bit closer than most, and then it is important to stand your ground. Of course, every situation is different. But let's see if he does what I said he did. I think he's going to come around to my side. See, look. Walking over, pretending, yeah, everything's fine. We could see you, and I know that you're there, and you've already done this to me. I've forgotten. I might have the memory of a goldfish, but I do remember what he just did to me 2 seconds ago. See, blown out of his trunk now, all those leaves. He's slowly starting to flare his ears, and he'll feed right rides up to in front of the car. We're basically behind a sandpaper raisin at the moment. I'm not worried. I'm not scared. What's happened to you? Why have you got green all over your face now? Maybe he's saying you won't like me when I'm angry and is slowly turning into the Hulk. Hey, you see that? Excuse me? That is unacceptable behavior. So he's very brave by standing behind. Hey, if you get ugly, it's unnecessary what you're doing. You can see he's basically throwing a temper tantrum. This was me at 3 years old when I couldn't get an ice cream. Well, maybe even now at 28, can't get an ice cream. I'd probably still do the same thing. So essentially what he's doing is he, as you saw, snuck up, tried to pretend that he was feeding around us, right to the front of the car. He jolted forward. He wasn't actually moving his body. He was just flicking his head at us, hoping that would be enough of an intimidation. And I'm sure you heard the little trumpet that he came off to. I think that's out of sheer frustration that I am not moving away from him. But in a situation like that, you must stand your ground. I clapped a little bit there, not that did much. I think he's been clapped and shouted at before, but you can tap the side of your car. You can do different things. You can sit there quietly as well. But if you do sit there quietly, just know that he's going to tower right over the top of you. And I don't like it when they get that close. It's just a little bit too uncomfortable for me personally, but each to their own. Every guide's got their own techniques, of course. But if I were to have reversed away in great panic, it would have caused much drama, because then this elephant would have won and realized that he can indeed bully the cars, which we don't want. That is how problem elephants start. The other thing that you maybe could have done is just turned your car on, just switch the engine on, and I reckon that he probably would have taken a few steps back. Not even revving or anything, just starting the car. So now he's sulking again, and he's going to eat over there. He's still watching us, though. You'll see every now and then he turns subtly towards us. He looks like over his shoulder. And this is such a great learning technique, young elephant bulls, for our students that we have here at Eco Training. Of course, these are the animals that you need to learn how to behave around, and the vehicles are the ones that can turn a car over literally without blinking. So it's important for students to have these kinds of encounters and to watch this kind of behavior and feel what it feels like to have a big elephant standing next to you. Again, for the young elephant bull, it's not necessarily going to be anything serious, and you have to have these experiences to learn to be able to react in situations. Of course, when you have cows coming towards you or big musk bulls, then please give them space. Please give them all the room that they need. You don't need to show, I personally don't think you need to show how big your ego is. But with a young bull like this, sometimes you need to show them that your muscles are bigger than theirs. Figuratively speaking, of course, not quite literally. Well, that was cool that he did the same thing twice. Good morning, Kelly. I think that this elephant bull is probably around 18 years old or so, somewhere around there. I don't think he's particularly old. He's not that tall. Again, he only looks massive because he keeps putting his front feet on logs and standing up on them. So I think he's got a bit of a complex about his height. It's okay, buddy. You'll grow into your big feet and your trunk and ears at some point. So there's another elephant bull, but we can't see him at the moment. He was feeding a little bit further back. So yeah, so these two boys have obviously just joined up. Whether or not they'll stay together and feed together, we'll meet up with some other male elephants a little bit later, as they normally do. See, now he's changing direction. I wonder if he's going to come back around for a third time. I don't want to mess with him too much, so I will probably leave in the next few minutes. I don't want to upset him. All I wanted to get out of the situation is that he cannot bully us, and that, not that I'm the boss, that's not what I'm trying to create here either, in case that's coming across like that. It's just that he needs to have respect for the vehicles too. It must be so hard for them, hey? Imagine being shunned from your herd and not really tolerated by anybody anymore, and you kind of get the feeling that you have to go off on your own. It must not be a very nice thing to experience. So of course you take your frustrations out on the next best thing, and the next best thing is us in the vehicles.
always like when watching elephants, and especially when they get close to the vehicle. Now here we're just close to the hippos, yeah? We're just close to our vehicle. Very isolated pool. I find that in droughts, hippos park together in the remaining water. Under these crowded conditions, sometimes fights become more common. If the losers are not killed, they're driven out of the pool and have little chance of survival. They appear to have moved from a long distance to find such new pools. But you find that it's close to the Mara River, a bit like, let's say, a kilometer or two. It seems like one bull here was ousted out of the river. You can see his marks on the body. And then a few females came to join him, so there's about 4. So one dominant bull. Though this is not very big enough to host maybe 10 or 20, but sometimes you find these little pools can harbor about more than 15 hippos. So oftentimes you find that there be disputes between adult hippos, especially the bulls, who fight over their territories. And after they fight over their territories, that is what makes them walk long distances to find these kind of pools. So these guys have to spend the rest of the day submerged in waters. And because when they're out on land, they overheat their body because they don't have sweat glands. But the good thing, they have a kind of gland that they always omit on their body, on their skin, which is called the hyposudoric acid, that helps them to protect them from the sun. So that's the reason why you see them submerged in the water. Over in the distance, that's the marsh. That's where elephants and other herbivores will come during the day to eat and forage, drink, and then head back to their respective places, and then leaving these hippos here. So in the late afternoon, you find that these hippos will be walking out of the water to go and graze. About a month ago, it was only one hippo. So I think the rest came to join him, and soon they'll form a family. This is a very, very nice area to settle, especially if no one is fighting you off. It seems like a very peaceful area because normally you find that hippos will always be grunting, sometimes pushing off each other, but seems like a nice peaceful place, a nice hippo pool. Because there's no competition here, that's the reason why you can't hear the short grunts, because sometimes that is an announcement, probably to advertise that a particular area is occupied. You find that when you go across lakes, rivers, you hear lots of hippo grunts, and sometimes those dominant bulls, because they always patrol or guard their territory, they'll be grunting over if younger bulls are coming closer to where they've marked or where they know it's their territory. From the moment we came here up to now, we've not heard a single grunt, so meaning that he's dominant and the females here are much enjoying. Vay, thank you so much for your question. Sometimes you find that hippos will get to nibble on meat. not because of the tough times, but that is an adaptation that sometimes can peak in because they also need nutrients in their body, but only at rare occasion. That is unusual behavior that you can sometimes witness in hippo. I've seen that in the Mara River where wildebeest were crossing and one of them was killed by a crocodile, and this hippo came and started chewing or biting on the carcass. But not often that you'll see that they will take that as a supplement for grass, but it's just an unusual behavior that always happens. What a nice quiet hippo pool. So I'll leave these guys peacefully here as I drive off to find something else, taking you over to another live location.
It's slightly hard to do a den search when you're driving along the road and you find 15 tawny bodies on the road. It looks almost like a massacre. Everybody's just lying, sound asleep. And everyone's accounted for. It's a Talamati pride. Oh, that's my hat. Hello, hat. I'm getting told off by my cameraman here. Apologies. 5 lionesses, dark mane, and 9 sub-adults. All bodies are accounted for. And we're on Cheetah Cut Line. I know some of you like to know the locations where we see animals. We're on Cheetah Cut Line, just near Mamba Road. And our kitties are sleeping. The Talamatis are spending a lot of time in Juma recently. I think I've seen the Talamatis more recently than I have seen the Nkuhumas. But territorial sort of shifts are very, very normal. It's not a static thing. And as I do mention, we tend to think of a territory because we map it out. I used to make these maps. We sort of, as visual beings, put a box around it, if you like. And it's not a static thing. It's a chemical odor fence that's constantly shifting, really. And I think the Talamatis personally have pushed down a little bit, and I think the Nkuhumas have gone south a little bit, but they're still neighbours. Their territories still border one another, but there'll always be constant shifts. But I have to say it's fabulous. Oh. I thought we had a limp. There we don't. It's fabulous to see dark mane. Out of all the avocas, dark mane's my favourite. Always has been. I like to think of him as a gentleman. He's very gentle. Now, he has an injury, as we all know, that I think it just never healed properly. And he's got quite a severe limp, but he's always had it. So he relies heavily on the Talamati pride. But he's part of the Avoca coalition of 3 that sort of reigns over both the Talamatis and the Nkuhumas. So he can absolutely go and join the Nkuhumas, but I think he just chose one pride, and it was the Talamatis, and he just sticks with them. Why? They feed him. I think he would hunt, but I really don't think he'll be great at it with that injury. So he lets the ladies do all the work. And he gets a free meal, lives a good life. Now, it was always thought that males just steal from females. They don't. They absolutely hunt on their own. But I think when it comes to dark mane, he's got it specifically easy with this pride. We never used to see them. They were always up in Buffelshoek. And now that we've got Traverse and Buffelshoek, they've come to Juma. Jolly whiskey, absolutely. All territories shift. say, sort of fluid. I like to call it fluid. And I know you've probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but when I look at my MacBook visualizer, that sort of screensaver thing, that's how I visualize territories, constantly moving, constantly fitting around one another, but also avoiding one another. It's almost like a dance, because nothing in nature is static. There's seasonal changes, there's temporary changes, there's permanent changes, there's climate changes. There's so many things moving, so many pieces of the jigsaw puzzle constantly moving. The territories are also constantly moving. You look rather comfortable. That's a very human way to lie. With the hand on the belly. But yes, going back to territory. So when the animal, be it leopard and be it lion, in answer to your question, it really depends on the situation, because here the leopard density is very, very high, especially for females. You know, we've got Tandi Klalamba, who's now territorial, Shidulu, Subui, Kuchava, Luna will soon become territorial, I would imagine, Ikanyeni, all of these leopardesses. Now Nsele, she seems to fit in somehow now. They've all got to shift around each other, avoid each other, and I firmly believe that they're all aware of one another. They'll be able to recognize each other individually by scent through the codes and the compounds. So the leopard density is very, very high. I mean, I'm only talking about, let's say, 4 properties here. Juma, Bufusuk, Torch, 5. Simbambili, Juma, Torchwood, Bufusuk, and Chitwa. And all of the leopardesses that I have just mentioned fit into these 5 properties somehow. So if a leopard is in an area where the density is not that high, A, the territory will most likely be bigger, competition will be less, and therefore it may not have to move as much. So it's really dependent on the situation. And for the lions, I mean, the Talamatis, there's the Torchwood Pride, the Inkohumas, and I don't really think the sticks fit in as much anymore. So because lion territories in general are bigger, they maybe don't shift as much as leopards. I hope that makes sense. It really depends on the situation. Territory goes on resources, food and water, and also competitors. Who's the competitors? Who's your neighbours? And for the Talamatis, it's obviously the Inkohumas and the Torchwood. But for the leopards, there's so many more characters at play here. But yes, I do believe this shift, and I do believe there's seasonal changes as well. And of course, it's summer now, so everything is plentiful. So we are going to sit here and watch our gorgeous Talamatis snooze.
Wow, guys, look at what we found. A pygmy falcon. Very iconic to this area in the sense that you'd find it in association with your sociable weaver. It's a very interesting interaction there, which I'll explain just now. But as you know, I like dissecting the name of these animals when I start speaking of these creatures. Now, the pygmy falcon is one of the smallest, or it is the smallest raptor that you get here, and it's a diurnal raptor, but also very interesting. If you take the scientific name, Polyhyrex semiturcus. Now, if you let's break that down very quickly. Poly obviously means multi or many. Hyrex meaning levels or rankings, and semi means half, and cotus meaning twist. Now the poly comes from the fact that these guys would actually get into the nests of sociable weavers, and you do find them in pairs, but not just the pair would be in that sociable weaver's nest. You actually do actually find multiple of them. So it would be the breeding pair, and they could be living with their offspring or the previous offspring in that communal nest, and hence it's a multi-leveled hierarchy there. But very interesting. If you look slightly to the to the right there, that would be a sociable weaver's nest that they would occupy, and it will be a multi-chambered nest. Big as it is, can host up to about, probably the biggest I've seen, I would say, easily hosting up to about 300 birds at a time. There are records of higher, which I have not seen as yet. So a very iconic bird to the Kalahari or to this region. Very proud of finding that specimen. We'll continue trying to find what we promised to find this morning, but a very good find.
Welcome back to the Mara, and this time we have crested cranes, and those youngsters are growing super fast. You can see how they're molting, changing color very, very fast. Normally after the hatch, those young chicks are able to run after a few minutes, and then the fledging takes from about 56 to about 100 days. But it seems, there's something going on there. Sorry, just to cut you short. There's two hippos there. Interesting. Those two are going after each other. There's a bit of a standoff there. See how they're opening their mouth, displaying an aggressive display there. Normally fights are in the water, but when the two bulls encounter each other on land, there's definitely going to be a fight. And that standoff really shows that it's not friendly. Seems like the one walking off is a little bit younger. So he's already shown submission. And off you go, because if you don't submit to a dominant bull, then it's going to be vicious, and sometimes those fights can be fatal and end up to death. And that's the reason why you find that hippo bulls will always be in some pools, like what we just seen a little while before we go to these cranes. Now the standoff is off. Back to our cranes, who seems like they're enjoying the grazing so much. The omnivores, sometimes they'll eat snakes, they'll eat rodents, little lizards, and as well as grass seeds as they traverse through the savanna. They're considered endangered because they are very problematic to farmers, and because of habitat loss and because of insecticide that is sprayed upon the farmers' plants. That's the reason why there's a big decline in the crested cranes. A very, very nice family. This family here, we've been watching them for over 3 months. They always hang around this area. Very nice parents. It's actually nice when you see these young crested cranes growing up super fast, knowing that the number of decline is actually added to, because we know that they're very much endangered. I like the way the parents lift up their heads to scan around, because they can fall prey to jackals, hyenas, and sometimes even lions. But not quite often that they'll fall prey to those. But they also have to worry, because out here there's lots of predators. Going to back up a little bit for a good position. Seems like they are actually getting closer to the road. You okay, Big James? Safari Kitty, thank you for your question. Yes, these are monogamous, so they always pair. So we have birds that will be polygamous, but these are monogamous, only having one pair at a time. So yes, these are monogamous. She's scanning around to see if it's safe. Very nice, colorful tissue paper flowers there. Sometimes you'll see these cranes associating themselves with antelopes. So the reason being, they benefit from the ability to grab the prey which is disturbed by those antelopes as they graze. They always spend the entire day looking for food, and in the evening you'll find them up in trees or maybe at a pond, where they always nest in the middle of those marshes or ponds, where it's easy for them to watch over predators and no access for predators getting towards them. They always construct a large nest with various plants and vegetables, especially on the tall wetland grass, so that they can lay their eggs. So eventually these two will separate from their family to start their own families. And so in the near future we'll have 3 families now, because the parents will be left by themselves because they always pair for life, and then the 2 will split up to form their own families. So it will be nice to see the population of this crested crane increasing here in the Mara, or partly in this Mara triangle. It's a very nice, beautiful morning, from the hippos fighting to these cranes feeding. I'm going to take you over to another live location.
as the Talamati pride snooze, the sounds of the bush are alive. So let's just sit here for a minute or two and listen to the sounds of the bush.
Direction, do you copy?
There's a herd of zebra in one of the open areas just past where we were driving earlier. So earlier we were around the riverbed and we decided to come out into a more open area, and we found all these zebras here. But notice the little one that's lying down. Early on it was standing, and then eventually decided just to put a little bit of pressure off those legs, it decided to go and lie down. But look at the one behind it, how long the tail is. Now the others, the tail almost like goes halfway down the legs, but this one almost all the way down towards the ground. Just imagine how well just that tail will be able to help just to keep some of the flies away. But what I want you to do is I want you to also listen as we enjoy these zebras, some of the bird calls, and I just want to point them out before I keep quiet. Now there's one that goes like, so that's a black-crowned chakra. There are a few starlings that are calling, as well as some of the franklins. So let's just listen out. And if you hear a howling sound, it's just because of the wind blowing over the equipment. Starting to pick up at the moment, and with it picking up you might even find that these zebras, they could stay in the open area like this because it's nice and cool weather, so not to be surprised by any of the bigger predators, especially with the youngster being around. Or if it continues like this, they could eventually just go and decide to lie down. There's actually another bigger zebra that have gone and lied down in this open section. So just right of where these ones are. Just wanted to point out, you'll see down the side, one decided to go and lie down as well. And I wonder if this might be the stallion of this herd, where they are together with the youngster, then he's lying down here to make sure that nothing comes down from this side, because this is down, like where he was is downwind from where they are. So at least he'll be able to keep his eyes open for any potential danger. That little one, look at how it's just rolled onto its side. Now yesterday I saw a youngster like this and I thought it was actually dead because it wasn't moving, and we spent quite a bit of time there, and eventually like it just rolled up, jumped onto its feet and ran off. So they tend sometimes to go into a bit of a deep sleep when they lie down like this. And they can run pretty quick. I would say roughly around, if they had to run for long distances, they'll probably be able to run like at 56 kilometers an hour, like roughly. But if they had to give like a quick sudden short sprint, they'll probably be able to get close to 70 kilometers an hour. Oh, if you look at the color of these zebra, it looks like it is white with black stripes, because if you look at all the white on the belly and on the side, but the actual skin color of a zebra is more of a gray color than the white hair and the black hair. So basically, because there's more white, I would say it's a white with black stripes, but the actual skin is more of a grey colour than the actual white that we're looking at. Dr. Rocky Balboa, depending on the type of species, I mean, like cats will clean themselves by licking their paws and rubbing it through their face, or they might have others that groom them. However, something like zebras, often what they do, especially if it rains, they'll sometimes be out in the rain because they won't necessarily move into dense areas to try and get cover. So, I mean, the rain could wash them. If they are full of parasites, they'll roll down in the ash of an area where it's been burned, or maybe even in the sand to try and get rid of it. Elephants, buffalo, rhino will either go for a mud wallow like the rhino and the buffalo, or the elephant will splash mud onto its back, and then as soon as it dries, they'll go against and rub up against a tree to get rid of those parasites. So there's various ways of keeping themselves clean. Sometimes elephants go and swim in the heat of the day, not necessarily that they want to clean themselves, but then of course they're going to be clean afterwards. It's mainly there because they want to cool themselves down. But something like a zebra, in terms of how they actually clean themselves, is just whenever there's rain. That's how they'll be clean, because it's no other way. They won't lick each other or they'll groom each other. Like you'll see them giving each other like little bites, but it's not going to be like licking each other to try and clean one another. What a beautiful animal just to sit and watch.
Zebras always fascinate me, especially because of their prints. I always call them donkeys in football jersey. Now back here in the Mara we have two young bulls, giraffe bulls, on a social interaction which is necking, but they've stopped. Seems like he's not interested. But before he got here, these two were necking. And that also helps them in future when they become dominant bulls. Because you find sometimes those dominant bulls actually gain that by fighting. And when they gain that confidence and gain that dominance, they're able to go or walk through and get closer or interact with their family groups which have lots of females, and that they gain the chance to mate with them. So that youngster is enjoying the kappa bush, which is very delicious, and especially they enjoy that after the rains, the sprouts that come up. These giraffes get to enjoy that, and also full of water, because often at time we don't see them going out to drink. In the forest line, I can see some other giraffes, so it seems like this is a very big family. You find that there's a mixture of youngster, male females, and older females. Most often you find that big mature bulls will always be out on their own. You can see how she's bent her neck, bringing it forward to eat grass. They are very active in the early hours of the morning and late afternoon because it's quiet, it's cool. But in the late afternoon, you find them resting. Nice, beautiful view of the Lulu escarpment there, with the giraffe gracing that view. Very, very elegant animals. They're very selective feeders. So he's just left that bush, walking over to find another more nutritious bush. Let's see where he goes. Crossing the road. Staring at us while the oxpecker is actually doing a very good job cleaning his neck. Because of their long necks, sometimes they can't even groom their necks. So the oxpeckers come in handy when it comes to cleaning or getting rid of ticks. Very good looking mane there. I think that is a very one tasty bush. He's not left there. Rasina, thank you for your question. I'm not quite sure about what colors do they see, but they can see in color. You find that most animals, because of their pros and their cons, you find that most of them have cons which are more stronger and some that have cons that are stronger. So you find that the pros and cons really matter when it comes to animal vision. So they can only see color. They can see color as well, but I can't really tell you which colors they get to see. But with the help of the pros and cons, these animals can be super active when in their vision. Well, thank you for your question. I think this giraffe is about 3.5 meters, 3.5 meters in height. I think he's going to join the brother. Checking for traffic. Looking left, then right, and then cross. Very nice, elegant animal. Linda, we have two very big predators that always dominate these savannas. So we have the apex predator, which is the lion, followed by hyena, and then leopard. But you find sometimes when the giraffes are young, they can fall prey to leopards. They're vulnerable to leopards, but at this age, at this size, they can fall prey to hyenas and lions, but more so lions. So they're preyed upon mostly by lions. Seems like a giraffe is walking off to go find more nutritious leaves. I'll carry on, find some maybe elephants and other animals that I might come across as I take you over to another live location.
We've got some grooming going on here. Now, this is one of the sub-adult males, and if I couldn't see his tawny testicles, I'm going to teach you how I would know it was a male, but I can see them. If you just look under his chin, and his sort of cheek area, it's a very, very slight start of a mane developing. I don't know if you would call it a mane at this point, but you can see there's a lot of hair there. He's lying next to dark mane, but you can just see there's hair that a female generally would not have. And that's how, if you didn't have a view of the genitals, you could slowly start to see that it's a male that you're looking at. Love it when lions do this. It's utterly ridiculous, and I'm not sure it's actually achieving anything. Now, we were talking about territory earlier. That was a really good question about shifting. And we tend to forget that there's actually many organisms that are territorial and they have territories, not just the sort of big cats that we talk about out here. Limpets, shrimps, crickets, even butterflies, ants, spiders, frogs, some reptiles like alligators, lizards, fish. Some fish can be extremely territorial when you sit and watch them on the coral reef. They've got their little patches. Some can be pelagic and sort of not territorial, but others can be extremely territorial. They get very aggressive. Clownfish, you're an enemy fish, which is exactly what Nemo was. They're unbelievably territorial of their anemone. And even as a human, a diver, if you go too close, they will bite you. It's really painful, actually. Birds and lots of different mammals. It's not just sort of your lions or your leopards that are territorial. And it can be for food and water, that's the main thing, but it's also maybe where you find the most mates for mating opportunities, or maybe the best area for your brood or shelter. And territories can vary from a tiny sort of diameter squared, if you like, for a teeny tiny insect, to thousands and thousands of meters. So I think we tend to think of territory as a big area for your cats, but you've got to remember, and limpets is such a funny example because they're basically snails and they live on rocks on the ocean tide line. Rocky tide pools, if you like. And they've got a muscular foot, as all snails have, that powers them along, but obviously doesn't power them along very quickly, and it allows them to create suction to stick onto the rocks. And they move extremely slowly using a radula, which all snails have, to scrape algae off the rocks. Delicious. But they're extremely territorial, so even although they can barely move and they sort of stick themselves to rock surfaces, they're very, very territorial of that little patch of rock, and they will defend it. So they're trying to keep other limpets away from their delicious algae, and they will ensure that the sort of harvest rate of the algae is appropriate. If you eat too much, it's not going to regenerate, it's not going to harvest. So they're almost like little lawnmowers of the algae, and they will actually shove intruders off. And what they're trying to do is dislodge them. So dislodge this muscular foot, creating suction, and knock them off the rock. So it's like a battle between two extremely slow-moving organisms to shove one another off the little rock surface, which is quite entertaining. And they're trying to sort of throw them into the turf below, and that would also kill them. So that's just a funny example, but we don't really think of limpets or snails or insects when it comes to territory. We do tend to think of lions or leopards, those that are very vocal and scent marking. But those little snails are very territorial too. Very precious of their little surface and very precious of their algae. They want to kill an intruder. I think this one enjoyed my limpet story. But of course, limpets can't call, they can't scent mark, so it comes to aggressive physical capability. Jacqueline, lion prides can absolutely fight, but what you've got to remember is that risking injury out in the wild is a big risk. You have the likes of Tingana, who tends to flee situations, so people would tease, Tingana always runs away, but look where it's got him. He's sensible enough to know that engaging in battle is not really worth the risk. He's 14 and he's thriving. He's actually on Little Gowrie right now, and he's just caught a baby impala. Another sort of key indicator that he's nomadic. But for lions, they do engage in battle a little bit more than leopards do. And why? Well, they have the safety of numbers. There's lots of them. Male lions tend to engage in battle more. There's lots of experiments done on male lions, and they seem to just see red, testosterone pumping through their veins, and they just run head first and engage in battle. Females not as much, because normally there's cubs or there's youngsters that they do have to sort of look after. But the lions definitely engage in battle and fight for territory, or for females, or for the ladies, a lot more than leopards do. And again, it comes down to social structure. Leopards don't have to conduct takeovers. They also have to avoid one another. They have to keep themselves safe because they're solitary. They don't have anyone else that can hunt for them. They don't really have anyone else that can do the work. I mean, Tingana steals from Tlatlamba a lot, but in all fairness, they are out here on their own. But it really creates an immediate risk of injury. And if you look at Darkmane, we don't quite know what happened to him, but he's injured. He doesn't walk with Blondie and Mohawk anymore because he can't, I don't think. And he really, really doesn't leave the Talamati's side. But they rarely kill one another. It's said that lions rarely kill each other. Normally at some point, one coalition will back down. And they will just sort of be defeated, if you like. Kellen, you're 11 years old and it's lovely to hear from you. You're asking, will lions know when leopards come into their territory? I would imagine so. I would really believe that lions will recognize the scent of a leopard. I know that's hard to imagine, being human, but I think we don't live in that chemosensory world that they do. They can taste the chemicals in their air, and I think they will not necessarily get an alarm call or a little notification on their phone when a leopard comes into their territory. But if they cross paths where a leopard has recently sort of moved, I think they'll be able to smell the leopard, absolutely. But it's not a threat. Their territories overlap. And we call this sympatric. And it means that they sort of live in the same geographical location, competing for almost the same resources. Lions and leopards live completely sympatrically. So the Talamatis right now are sort of in a spot where Tandy uses a spot, Kuchava uses a spot, Tingana's been seen recently using this spot. They can't keep anyone out of their territory. That outer fence, if you like, is not impenetrable. It's basically just a warning to slow intruders down. Hey, Talamatis are here. Cross this line and you're in Talamati territory. But it doesn't mean that the Nkuhumas can't walk in. It's just a signal. It's a form of communication. But I do think a lion would be aware when a leopard's been in the area, absolutely. Recently. But rain's a big factor out here. Rain washes away scent. So we're going to just sit here a little bit longer because it's a slightly cooler morning today, and hopefully our sleepy lions are going to move.
Hopefully those lions get up. But we're back in the river, like scanning along the bank, seeing if we can find something interesting. Now, we haven't seen any tracks of leopard or lions or some of the predators from this morning. However, we were able to see quite a few giraffes and zebra more in the open areas. But now what we're trying to do is, because the wind is starting to build up, we are moving into the river to hopefully see if there's some animals that will move into the river to try and get away or out of the wind. Now, I am also looking for a particular flower that we find in the area that's known as a string of stars. So it's a beautiful flower. It's small with like the string of little white flowers on it. So if I do see it, I would love to stop and show all our viewers how beautiful this flower is. So I'm just carefully scanning along the banks. I might not be able to see it in the soil type. It might be more towards a clay soil, but hopefully as we get out, we might see them. I'm just carefully scanning, don't see anything yet. But also in the meantime, while we're going, so what I'm trying to do, so with the tracks that we have like made in the river, often if animals move, let's say from the left side of the river across over to this side, they would move over this track. And so because of the actual tracks in the sand, that shape, if there's no wind or not a lot of changing conditions, could stay there for weeks and it still looks like they might be fresh. But as soon as a vehicle's driven here and you find tracks going over it, you know that those tracks are really fresh. Okay, let's try and see. I haven't seen anything yet from those flowers I was telling you about. Oh, you know what? I might have just found them. So just bear with me as I'm just going to switch off and try and position myself so I can see, get some of them. Might be, might not be. Let me have a look. No, it's not. No, it might be. It's just so hard to see because it's lost quite a bit of the flowers on it. But just to show you, I'm not too sure which one this would be. It might even be a family of that same plant that I was hoping to show you. But if you look at the very tip of this particular plant, you'll notice there's quite a few of these little flowers. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep it still so you can actually see it. I don't know who's shaking more, me or the wind. Okay. Right, so let's try and do this again. There's a very small array of flowers. Now just to show you here, so it actually starts on this side and goes all the way around to this side, right over here. Don't know if you can see properly from there, but hopefully we can find some more that I can show you, but there's quite a few here. But if I can find just a beautiful one with that you can see all the flowers around, it would be amazing. So let's give it a go as we go along the river and hopefully see some more. It was roughly in February this year, so it's been quite a while since the river has come down, and that's when we had quite a bit of rain. So we, like often for this river to flow, you need to have a lot of rain in a very short amount of time. Yeah, I can't really see too much happening in the river here, and it also maybe because of the angle where we are, just to give you an idea, so where we're driving, the river is actually going down from a north in a southerly direction, so the wind is channeling down here and coming up. So it's very windy in this riverbed at the moment, so hopefully as we move out to a bit more cover, or even around the riverbed where there's a bit more shelter, is where we could possibly find more animals.
Good luck, Nikki. We are surrounded by strings of stars. We'll try and see if we can point some out too. They're one of my favourite flowers. And I don't think it's on appearance, I think it's smell. It's a really sweet, sickly smell that comes off the strings of stars, especially after the rains. It's between that and wild basil. I can't quite choose which one's my favourite. I often wonder if animals, just like these lions, enjoy other scents in the bush, if that makes sense. So obviously they're highly receptive to chemicals and scents and pheromones, and they'll constantly be sniffing out prey, each other, enemies. But I often wonder, would they enjoy the sweet smell that comes from the strings of stars, or would they enjoy the smell of wild basil? Of course, we'd never be able to quantify that, but the thought passes through my head. I don't think the Talamati pride here could be any flatter. We've got some strings of stars right in front of us. Will NIKKI be upset if we beat him to it? Just like 12:30. Jessica, I don't know why. Would need to ask them. Where's your fluff? Where's your tuft? I imagine 2 reasons: it maybe got bitten off, or it was maybe stood on by something when it was younger and probably softer and much more malleable. I'm really not sure. But we noticed that earlier as well. Okay, we're going to point you out these flowers that we've just been talking about. Have you got them there? Just roughly maybe here? Yes. Yes, there you go. NIKKI can still show you his, but here it's the strings of stars. Bless me, everyone. Sorry. I'm sneezing for some unbeknown reason. Heliotropum snoudneri. I always remember this Latin name because it's very relevant. Heliotropium, turning to the sun, because the flowers turn upwards and are only ever facing the sun. And of course they're said to look like miniature little stars, which is where string of stars, the English name, comes from. You'll only really find them in summer. Once summer ends, these flowers disappear. No more. Back to barren lands. And you'll find them in disturbed grassland areas, which is exactly where we are right now. I'm going to try and see if I can find you some wild basil now as we sit next to our Talamatis.
I hope she's not going for me. Good afternoon and welcome to Jan Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. As you can see, we have a stalking cheetah and we're not quite sure what she's stalking. I was just saying to Craig behind the camera that I hope she's not stalking us because we can't see anything in front of her other than our vehicle. So we've had quite a rainy morning, so we've been undercover until now. We've just had a break in the rain. And I'll introduce myself just now, but right now let's stay on this female and see what she's looking at, because this is incredibly interesting behavior. You can see how her shoulders are hunched. She seems to be losing her nerve as she's getting a bit closer. And it is this female that is in the process of being rewilded. So it is a possibility that she will have sort of a different reaction to vehicles than normal cheetah. See how she's kind of looking around. I think she did see movement in the vehicle and she perhaps got a bit interested in it, because you can see she's now completely sort of changing her tactics. If she does get too close to the vehicle, please don't be startled if we do have to make a little bit of noise. We do have to break that association that this cheetah has with vehicles. She's not allowed to be comfortable around vehicles to the point where she can actually approach them to investigate them. You know, we want to be completely separate from the animals. So any animal that looks like it's going to approach a vehicle and interact with the vehicle, we have to stop and sort of let them know that there is a bit of a gap that they cannot breach. But she seems to be fine right now. She's stopped. She's watching us. She's actually giving us a terrific shot. Oh no, she is stalking again. This is just unbelievable to have a cheetah right close to us. You can see the collar on her neck there. That's how we identified her straight away as this cheetah that's being rewilded. The reason we have to keep track of her is, one, we need to monitor her. For the next 3 months, we're going to have to be keeping track of her for at least 4 hours a day, because this is, sort of a scientific study as well, seeing the effects of rewilding a cheetah, how effective it is. We need to document exactly this kind of behavior. What's good to see is that she doesn't seem to be incredibly skinny, so she has been successfully hunting. Okay, so now that we have a break in that exciting scene, my name is Kim, and behind the camera we have Craig, and we will be with you this morning. This is absolutely fantastic. So just to give any of our new viewers a background on this cheetah, we've explained it before, but I'm sure we've got many viewers who don't know the whole story. She is from Ashia, which is a rehabilitation center, and their primary goal is to rewild their animals. And we've had a 2-phase rewilding approach, so that she was actually bred in captivity, or perhaps taken into captivity when she was a very young cub and unable to survive on her own. And they trained her within the facility to be able to hunt by having a pulley system. They then released her into a reserve that was next to Addo Elephant Park, which only had one pride of lion and not many other predators. And that was to show that she could successfully hunt in the wild and also keep an eye out for predators. Now, that gave her the best chance of survival, because the main threat to cheetah are other predators such as lion, leopard, hyena. All of those are what is actually diminishing their numbers at the moment. So she then proved for a month that she was able to hunt there, and in the last phase of this rewilding process, we've released her onto Pinda. And we are very well known for having an excellent habitat team who puts a lot of work into conservation, and we've done a lot of sort of groundbreaking, I suppose, research into conservation. We've successfully reintroduced pangolin into the area, which have been extinct for 50 years, and now we are trying this whole rewilding of cheetah. We've got a very successful cheetah record. In fact, we are known for the most genetically diverse cheetah. So we are hoping to add to our list of successes a rewilding of this cheetah here, and I'm personally very excited to see how she does. Look at her. She is just the most beautiful cheetah. You can imagine introducing genes such like that into our cheetah pool. Just trying to limit our movements as much as we can. Now, what I love about this cheetah, if you have a look on the tip of her tail, it is incredibly white. We were talking about the lion's tail being bitten off. And that's a common thing that happens to cheetah. They often lose that white tip. Sorry, I'm just trying to duck out of the way here. They often lose that white tip. It's a follow me signal that they have for their cubs when they're running through grass, something that their cubs can keep an eye on. But often if they have an interaction with a lion or leopard, they might have a very close call. And you can see a lot of cheetah have lost that white tip. But I'm very grateful that she hasn't as yet, because it is a really stunning feature on this one. A lot bigger and a lot more white than I've seen on most cheetah. Incredibly interesting behavior. And the only thing I can figure out is that perhaps she is just a bit nervous of the vehicle. She's not sure. She hasn't gotten used to vehicles yet, but it was great to see how she was happy to walk past us. She didn't feel incredibly threatened. You can see as she's getting a bit more distance, she's changing her posture a little bit. He does seem to be on the move. Anna Marie, thank you very much for your question. No, she's not going to have that collar on for her whole life. We're going to keep it on there for at least 3 months. And that will enable us to find her to sort of monitor her progress and make sure that nothing happens to her in those 3 months, because obviously, being rewilded, she's at very high risk of having interactions with leopard and lion that she doesn't know how to quite handle. So that's one of the reasons. And the second one is any animal that we introduce onto the reserve, whether it be a new set of male lions to sort of increase our genetic diversity, new elephants or any new animal, we will keep that collar on for the first 3 months, just because that's the chance, or that's the time when they're most likely to try and leave the reserve. We don't want them going into any local communities for others' sake as well as their own. So for the first 3 months, we are going to keep that collar on, and once that time period has lapsed and we are quite happy that she's settled in and is successful, then we're going to remove that collar. I'm going to follow her. She's just disappeared into that thicket. I think she might even be lying down in there. It's starting to drizzle a little bit, so she's maybe getting a little patch of shelter. So we're just going to follow her for now, get a little bit closer, and hopefully we get another view. Now, as I said, it has been raining, so we are not going to be driving off-road. We're not going to be driving off-road today. And the reason being is you can see how incredibly wet the soil is. It's very, very saturated. And so that's going to make it very difficult for us to drive off-road. It's going to do a lot of damage to the environment. While we are trying to find another view of her, we're just going to send you to another live location.
So from the cheetahs, who look like they're super active, to our lions who are very, very lazy, still flat, sleeping on. So these are 3 lionesses from the Ulolo pride. So there's actually 2 just sleeping side by side. You can tell by the one who's just raising her head has a tracking collar. We haven't seen these lions for about 3 or 4 days. But I'm sure they came here on the open because they're simply looking for food. Because it rained last night, it was super wet, cold. So they've come here because it's starting to warm up. So they actually crouch here because of warmth. There's warm ground there. Very nice, relaxing morning. Peaceful. Less flies. So these lions are super much enjoying. But I'm sure later on they'll decide to walk off, maybe try to look for food. So the LEPERES pride consists of about 17 pride members. They've split up to form small groups, so where sometimes we find these 3 together, we have others that go 2, others that go 4. So sometimes when these prides become big, we find that they disperse, they form smaller prides or smaller groups or coalition, making it very, very interesting for them, and also it makes it easier for them to go out in hand, because big pride members, sometimes we find that when it comes to meal sharing, some members will be left out. So doing this, it comes to an advantage where they'll all have a share of their meal. So recently we had these lionesses mating with one male lion called Oralashi and a young sub-adult or youngster who always accompanies Oralashi. So probably they've conceived because you can't see the males anywhere closer. So I think in time, when it's about 3 months and a half are over, then this will have some small calves which will also get to fill in the Ulolo pride number. Very nice pose there. It's a very interesting morning because you find that when it's cold, you find lions sometimes would tend to be in. And I thank you for your question. So in terms of changing pride, we find that they only extend their pride area. So conquering other pride, especially for the males, they always walk off from their pride area and conquer another pride and dominating it. But females, or lionesses rather, they never leave their natal pride area. So they'll always stick and hang into their pride area. So meaning that the lionesses never leave their natal pride area. I can tell they just came here a little while ago because I crossed or drove through here late in the morning but didn't see them. So because it was very cold, very chilly, and the grass was wet, that's the reason why they were not around here. They only came here after it started warming out. Lionesses can sleep a little bit less of time than the male lions. Lions can sleep about 16 to 18 hours, but you find sometimes lionesses sleeping up to 10, 11 hours. They do most of the hunting, they do most of the activity. They're the ones who take care of the cubs from when they're born to when they introduce them back to the pride. But then the big male lion who are dominant will also take charge when it comes to protecting these prides from other intruders. 3 days ago, we saw Fang being chased out by Olalashe and the youngster. So good thing they've welcomed Olalashe because Olalashe comes from the pride area of Owino, which we're not far from Owino's. So he has an advantage because he's crossed over from Owino to Olololo and also to the river pride. Just like I told you a little bit earlier, females never leave the natal pride area, only the males do. And with that, they have an advantage of having more cubs, and their gene extends far and wide from their pride area to other pride areas. I'm going to spend a little while with these lions here. I'm not quite sure what time they'll wake up, but seems like it's a nice place to just sit and relax as I take you over to another live location.
We've come back to our leopardess Tlalamba, having done an extensive loop around through Torchwood, and I'm afraid we came up with nothing except one baby Speaks hinged back to tortoise, and unfortunately we had no signal where the Speaks hinged tortoise was, so we've returned to Tlalamba for the last little bit of the drive. I hope that's acceptable to you all. I'm sure none of you mind looking at this gorgeous cat lying upon a termite mound in a quintessential termite mound pose, her belly heaving up and down, filled with impala as it is. She looks such a rich colour right now. You'll be pleased to know that her father, or who we presume to be her father, Tingana, has followed suit and whacked a baby impala in the reserve to the south of Djuma. So apparently he's actually done some hunting. Baby impalas are ideal for, what shall we say, semi-retired gentlemen who aren't really up to the rigours of warthogs and wildebeest, etc. She looks very comfortable, very satisfied. Lisa, I have not seen the actual results on... In fact, have we? I think we have seen the parentage results, and I think it is, in fact, definitely Tingana that's her father. Panthera has done a lot of research out here, and we handed in vials of their poop from time to time, and there were various tests done on them. And I forget exactly, but I think that she was confirmed to be Tingana's daughter, as far as I remember. Almost no bird song now, it's all quiet. Well, Sir 50, they'll go outside of their territories for sure. We know that they will head into the territory next door. I doubt that they'll go further than one territory across to find a mate, but they will move out of their territories, which they wouldn't normally do. So, in this area, where a leopard's territory is 10 square kilometres or so, I suppose they'd cover an area of around about 20 square kilometres, perhaps. She's looking over towards another alarm-calling bird. Chip, 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 chip. She don't know what it is. Sounds like a francolin, but I don't... Yeah, it is a francolin. I did see an African hawk eagle a little earlier. So any francolin in the area will have to watch out, or it will become the meal of an African hawk eagle. Doesn't look like the most comfortable bed she's chosen, but I suppose it's got some nice warmth to it. Hello, Jane loves Iowa. The big cats don't purr. They seem to be unable to. Cheetahs can. Well, I mean, they're big cats, I suppose, but they are not from the Panthera genus. So cheetahs can purr, and they do purr. Caracals can purr. I don't know about servals. I assume servals can purr. But leopards and lions and tigers and jaguars and probably snow leopards cannot purr. They can only... Well, the vocalization range extends to the saws that she makes, growls, and that's about it, really. And chuffing. They do chuffer. She was a big chuffer as a youngster. I'm sure she will be when she meets up with a male. She'll chuff at him. But they don't have an extensive vocal range. She looks extremely satisfied right now. It's been very interesting over the last little while also to watch the differences or changes and shifts and overlaps of the female territories in this area. And Sele, the one-eyed leopardess, seems to be non-territorial currently. Tlalamba set herself up quite nicely here in the northeast corner of Djuma, a little bit into Torchwood and up into Buffelshoek, quite a long way up into Buffelshoek. Quite a large territory she set up. Thandi settled pretty much in her normal domain, although probably shifted south slightly. Guchava and Thandi seem to be overlapping on Guchava's northwestern boundary and Thandi's southeastern, more than they have perhaps a little in the last. More than they have perhaps in the last little while. That's what I meant to say. And Sibui seems to be pushing up from the south as well and squeezing in almost a little pimple on the north of her territory inside Djuma, which is sandwiched between Thandi and Shidulu. It's all quite interesting. But it's not unusual. It has happened all the time. And often the leopards kind of flex their muscles and check things out, and then it either settles or it goes back to what it was quite often, quite frequently. Judy, I think that all cats, big cats as well, I mean, I don't know about tigers and jaguars because I've spent no time around them, but the big cats that I've been around would indicate to me, and I haven't read anything like this, but we have discussed it before, I think that their instinct to hunt is not necessarily the same as their instinct to eat. And I think that the instinct to hunt and play are probably quite linked, because that's how, that's what an animal does sometimes, or what a cat does when it's playing with a ball of wool or a baby impala. It's using the same tools that it uses when it hunts. And so I think that there's just an element of play involved in it that is associated with the hunting instinct. And I think that they derive enjoyment from it. I definitely think they derive enjoyment from it. It's not cruel, obviously. There's no intention to be cruel. I don't think they understand what cruelty is. But it's not necessarily the same instinct that drives them to hunt, or the same reward system necessarily that drives them to eat. Now, I don't know how that would work hormonally, but whatever inspires them to hunt is not entirely associated with hunger or the satisfaction of hunger. And we've seen that in the Mara with the lions. They just hunt, and if they're not hungry, they don't eat. Nice cooling breeze for her there. Quite enthusiastic singing from the black-crowned chagras. I think she'll be very satisfied with her day. She'll probably eat this thing for the rest of the day and then possibly head off to have a drink at Buffelshoek Waterhole, which is not far from here. And then who knows, because she does travel quite extensively. I suppose you must also understand that when we say a leopard's walked far or has gone far since last night, it's all very relative. I mean, it's never more than, as the crow flies, 3, maybe 4 kilometres. 4 kilometres would be a long way. So, and I saw her in camp 2 nights ago, and we then found her here the next day. As the crow flies, that's probably only about 1 kilometre, although we did track her some of the way, so maybe she covered 2.5, 3 kilometres. So not a huge distance at all. And you'd think, given the size of their territories, that they were incredibly easy to find. All right, I think while you go somewhere else, I'm going to move around and see if we can't get another angle.
Welcome back to our lions who are still sleeping flat, but I can see we have some cranes who are really noisy. They just went quiet a little while ago because they've seen the land, and any prey that will be around here will actually be warned by the cranes. So the good thing is they have a safe distance from the lions, so it's not easy for the lions to come actually and get them, because lions have to use the element of surprise to get prey. Being out in the open, they cannot hide over and get close to those cranes. Very nice cranes. I think they're drinking water there. Very nice, beautiful scene. I can't remember the last time I saw cranes drinking water. This is lovely. Seems like they were thirsty. While these two are enjoying their drink, the one to the left is busy having breakfast. After the rains, there's some little pools that form up with very fresh water, and I think that is what happened just there, because this place had no water thanks to the rains last night. At least the cranes are enjoying that fresh water. I think he's had enough, so it's back to feeding. It's very nice to see a family of 7, so 3, and previously we had 4 within a very small radius. So that tells you that this area is ecologically very, very nice and a good place for these cranes to live. Charlie, thank you for your question. So crested cranes will lay eggs numbering from 2 to 5. So sometimes because of predation, and sometimes there's some eggs that may not hatch, but the usual number is 2 to 5. So normally you find a flock of about 4 youngsters on average. So I would say, let's say 3 to 4 on average that you always see around. But the normal clutch consists of about 2 to 5. As you watch these cranes slowly grazing and our land sleeping, let me take you over to another live location.
Hello, Olivia. She's out, everybody. We left the sleepy lions and I thought, you know what, let's just check. Let's just do one more check. And we have a very, very sleepy Olivia. The eyes were wide open. She had a really good look at us. But the more we visit, the better. That's just the very, very start of the habituation process. But unfortunately, she's sleeping. And according to the book and the diagram that I am sharing, although they can maybe stand upright, although they're maybe, quite far on in the development, when they sleep, they'll still assume very grotesque was the word that was used, sleeping positions. So what we really want is Olivia to wake up and stand nice and tall for us so we can have a look at the posture, the feathers. But either way, it's good to see her. It's always worth coming back, checking in. Things change. And I've sort of checked all the southern hyena dens. So my next drive, I'll check the northern ones. Jolly Whipsky, we have no idea. And to this day, we still have no idea whether Sebwig was male or female. Yes, he, she could have been either. But we just chose a masculine name. So this time I thought, let's choose a feminine name. Does it matter? I don't think it matters. And I know some people are against naming animals, but I can't sit here hour after hour calling it an it or he, she. Giving it a name just allows us to sort of dig a little bit deeper into our observations and our discussions. Just makes it easier. So I have no idea whether he or she is male or female, but Olivia, I think it could be applied to a male or a female in today's world. We just chose a more feminine one this time. I don't know if we'll ever know. It's almost impossible to tell. Really, the reason that we know Missy's wig is a female is because she was brooding. Gonna have to repeat that question, I'm afraid. Ear tufts. Vajan, you are asking about the ear tufts. When will they start appearing? I'm not actually too sure, but I do remember roughly around the 6 weeks, 8 weeks mark, we started to see the ear tufts in Sebwig. So it's just a feather, a specialised feather, and there's no sort of bone structure there. But I'm sure it was around the 6 to 8 week mark that we noticed Sebwig starting to get those little ear tufts. But it's one of the latter things to develop. And a spotted eagle owl, look at her, she's so sweet. I just wish she would open her eyes. They're definitely open now. They're just closed right now because she's sleeping. I just don't think she's hit the 2-week mark personally, but I really want to sort of gauge. Normally the chick leaves the nest only after a month. And not dispersing, just moving from this spot and moving over to the official Sedgwick house, which is just across the road. Standing on trees, just being a lot more mobile, but not dispersing. And that normally happens around the month mark, give or take. And dispersal comes in at about 4 months, I'm afraid. So we'll need to keep a very, very close eye on Olivia so we can spend as much time with her as possible.
And welcome back to and beyond Pindar Private Game Reserve. As you can see, our cheetah has moved into the comfort of this little thicket. You know, possibly as she started getting up and moving, was drizzling a little bit. So she's just trying to get herself out of the rain. At least she's got a bit of an opening in front of her face that she can use to sort of keep an eye out for predators. You can see she's busy grooming herself. Probably just trying to lick off all that moisture that she would have gotten on her fur as she walked through this long grass, and also from the rain falling on her back as she walked. We had a little bit of excitement earlier. We heard some monkeys alarm calling in the distance, and we went to have a quick look to see if we could see what they were alarming at. We weren't able to find anything, but you can see that she will have to be a little bit more alert at the moment. It is a signal to her as well to know that there's possibly another predator in the area. You know, they would not be alarming at her, because although they're sort of close enough to have seen her, she's very, very well hidden in this thicket. And them having started alarming quite a bit after she went and lay down means that they definitely didn't see her. Otherwise, they would have been starting to alarm from the moment she was walking towards this area. So she's just keeping a little bit alert right now. She is absolutely gorgeous. Look at those slanted eyes and those beautiful prominent black stripes down the front of her face. I tell you, it is an amazing privilege to be watching her right now. Chase, I'm just trying to remember how old this cheetah is. I think she's about 3 years old. Now, she's still got quite a bit of fluff on the back of her neck. But as far as I remember, she's close to 3 years old. That's what I'm trying to remember right now. She's certainly at an age where she would be breeding already. So she's already walking around looking for a mate. But that will happen anywhere from 2 years onwards. But if I remember correctly, they said she was about 3 years old. Now, another thing, you can actually have a look at the ear. If you have a look at her ears, they are in very good condition, and that is often the best way to sort of age any animal. There was a recent study on how to age leopards, and it's quite interesting because we always used to age them based on how pink their nose was. That's what was the accepted method of aging leopards for quite a while. And what this study showed is that in fact it is not the most not the best method to actually age them. In fact, ear condition is. Because as you'll see, any animal, as they sort of age and get a little bit older, their ears start to get a bit more tattered. So ones like hers, the ears are in really good nick. There's no sort of cuts or any cartilage missing. It's still got its form. You can think that they are quite young. And then you've got to take other factors into account. You know, like the fact that she's alone. Cheetah will leave their mothers at about 17 to 18 months. And then they will stay with their siblings, you know, be another female or male, for a few months after that, until they're actually driven to leave them, when they feel that urge to start mating, which is around about 2 years old. Starting to get a bit more of heavy rain, so we're going to try and stay here as long as possible, but just being warned, we might have to seek some cover to get our camera out of the rain so that we don't do any damage to our equipment. As you can see, this cheetah does not seem like she's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. She's even closed her eyes. She's having a well-deserved rest. As you can see, it never lasts very long for a poor cheetah. They still have to stay very vigilant the entire time. So they'll have these small periodic naps, often only lasting 10 or 20 or so seconds. And then they'll pick up their head and have a look around, check for any other predators. I think what we're going to do is we're going to stay here as long as possible, but it does seem like we might have to head towards shelter. And we're going to send you towards another live location.
What a lovely sighting of the cheetahs. Now back to our lions. They're still sleeping and not left this sighting at all. It seems like a very warm place to be. It was cold early in the morning, and I'm sure they're much enjoying this place. So as soon as... Oh, she's actually thinking of either maybe moving forward or maybe scanning, because sometimes, because lions blend in so well, you find that the grass cover can really shields them, because animals walking through the savannah may not sometimes see the lions. And that's the reason why each and every member here has to keep on raising their heads to scan around to see what's coming, what's approaching them. They're not worried of any other predator because they're epic predators, and they are the core of their pride area, so they're not worried at all. The only thing they want to look or scan is to check if there's wildlife approaching their way. Sometimes they can even spend the entire day here, or maybe moving just a little bit to maybe a shady area, maybe under a tree, if temperatures will rise during the day. But it seems like it's a little bit overcast. Seems like it might rain later on today. So I might drive off and leave these lions here. Maybe try to find something else before the close of the show. And I'm sure maybe in the afternoon I might come the same area, if not the same spot, to look for these lions. So as I drive off, let me take you over to another live location.
Our cat is sleeping-ish. She's certainly not showing much enthusiasm for anything else currently. She looks like she's pondering something, thinking carefully. I don't know if that's the case or not. Tlalamba, are you thinking about something? Or just having, as they say, a dose? Quite sweet, isn't it? We moved around a little bit. She did a little move around as well. Otherwise, things are pretty much as they've been. Kellen, my favorite animal is most likely the wild dog. I often say that because, well, they are the animals that are the most egalitarian. In other words, they tend to look after each other better than a lot of other animals, and that appeals, I think, to many people's sense of humanity. We're a species that does that. We're one of the animals that tends to look after our old and sick, and so do wild dogs. Whereas things like hyenas and lions definitely don't do that. They'll normally just leave their old and sick to die. There are exceptions, and there's definitely evidence, especially in lions, of them looking after their older ones sometimes, but normally not so much. So that's why I like wild dogs, I think. Also, they're always active, and they're always doing fun things, playing with each other, hunting, and normally they don't sleep like lions do, which means that they're a lot more entertaining to watch for the most part. But I've got to tell you, I think that I'm in a minority, and I think that the animal that you're looking at now is probably most people's favourite. If you look at social media and photographs and that sort of thing, the animals that are most frequently enjoyed, or photographs of which are most frequently enjoyed, are leopards and cubs. Everyone loves cubs, lions or leopards, but leopard cubs especially. And so I think there's a real love for spotted cats, specifically these ones around the world, even more so than for cheetahs. And you can see why. I mean, this is definitely my favorite cat. You can sit with these things for hours as well and just marvel at their colors. You can marvel at the way they move, if they happen to be moving, their skills in a tree. No, Dr. Rocky Balboa, I have not seen a leopard take down an injured lion before. Leopards are much, much, much smaller than lions. And, you know, unless the lion was almost dead, it would still be incredibly dangerous to a leopard. So, no, I think what you'd find if you found an almost dead lion would be that a leopard would avoid it. It wouldn't try and go anywhere near it to try and kill it. Even if it was dead. Let me just sneak I can see a tail there. No, I think it's a piece of Chloris roxburghiana. Let me sneak forward. She might go towards the tree. Or she might just go and find a soft bit of grass and bush to lie in. She hasn't gone towards the tree. See where she went, Niels? Oh, there she is. Hello. Right, I'll stop here. I'm just going to talk very, very, very quietly because she's right next to us. She's very sleepy and very happy. So I'm not too worried that we're too close, although we are obviously very close. It's very lovely to have this little princess cat so close and happy with us. I actually think that she is the kind of animal that doesn't particularly like loud human voices. And I've often seen her asleep, and you arrive, and if there's another vehicle around, or if the guide is talking too loudly or the cameraman's talking too loudly, she'll just get up and kind of move away a bit. So I think she quite likes silence, or doesn't like too much human voice noise. we'll just sit here quietly for the next minute or so, and then we'll leave her be as we go off to have breakfast. She's only about 3 meters from us now, but you can see she's falling asleep. Perhaps it is the soothing way that I'm speaking. And as I look at her, I'm looking straight into her eyes, and people will tell you, don't ever look into the eyes of a cat. Well, she's not reacting any differently. Right, everybody, we're going to head back for breakfast. Thank you very much for your questions and comments. We'll see you this afternoon at 1500. Until then, stay safe and happy wherever you happen to be.